In the heart of ancient Italy, nestled beside the glittering Bay of Naples, there once stood a city that had everything a Roman could dream of: wealth, beauty, and life that overflowed in every street. Its name was Pompeii. To the people of the first century, it wasn't just a city. It was a promise of pleasure, luxury, and peace. The air smelled of sea salt and olive oil, and the laughter of merchants echoed through marble-paved alleys. Wine poured freely, music filled the courtyards, and the citizens of Pompeii believed that the gods had truly blessed them. The streets were alive with color. Every wall told a story, painted frescoes of love, mythology, and glory. Even the smallest homes had murals more detailed than royal palaces of other lands. Traders from faraway places came to Pompeii to sell silks, perfumes, and spices. Roman senators vacationed there to escape the politics of Rome. And at night, the whole city glowed with torchlight, as if the stars themselves had descended to join the celebration. But below this paradise, something ancient was stirring. The mountain they called Vesuvius watched silently, looming over the city like a giant made of stone. People saw it as harmless, a peaceful protector. They built farms on its slopes, temples at its base, never realizing that this mountain was a sleeping volcano, one of the most dangerous on Earth. And one day, it would take everything from them. Nearly 2 decades before the end, there had been signs. In the year 62 AD, an earthquake shook Pompeii so violently that statues fell from their pedestals, fountains cracked, and buildings collapsed like sandcastles. Many thought it was just nature's wrath. The city repaired itself, stronger and prouder than before. But the earth beneath never stopped murmuring. Wells dried up, animals disappeared, the air smelled faintly of sulfur. These were warnings, but no one understood. The Romans had no science for volcanoes, no word even for eruption. The people simply went on with their lives, building, trading, loving, laughing. And then came the day that time itself would stop remembering, until the ashes revealed it centuries later. It was the morning of August 24th in the year 79 AD. The sky was clear, the sea calm, and the city alive as ever. In the marketplace, women bargained for fresh figs. Bakers slid bread into hot ovens. In the grand villas, wealthy families prepared for feasts. Slaves scrubbed floors. Children played with wooden toys. And at the harbor, ships came and went with goods from across the Mediterranean. Everything was ordinary until in a single moment, everything changed. Just after noon, a violent roar burst from Mount Vesuvius. The mountain split open, and a dark column of smoke and ash shot miles into the sky. Witnesses later described it as a pine tree made of fire. Within minutes, daylight turned dim. People looked up, confused, frightened. Some thought Jupiter, the king of gods, was angry. Others prayed to Neptune, hoping the sea would protect them. No one understood what was coming. The air grew thick. Fine ash began to fall, soft at first, like gray snowflakes drifting through the city. Children reached out their hands to catch them. But soon the flakes turned heavy, sharp, and burning hot. The sound of roofs cracking echoed through the streets. People started to run, covering their faces with cloth, trying to breathe through the dust. Dogs howled. Horses panicked. The ash fell faster, piling up on the ground, turning the streets white, then gray, then black. As the hours passed, the city was swallowed by chaos. Some tried to flee toward the sea, but the air was choking with smoke. Others hid in their homes, believing the storm would pass. But the storm wasn't just above them. It was inside the mountain, building pressure, ready to explode. By evening, the column of ash had grown 20 miles high. Lightning flashed within the smoke. The mountain groaned like a living creature, and people screamed prayers that went unanswered. In a nearby town called Mizino, a Roman admiral named Pliny the Elder watched the eruption from across the bay. He was a scholar, a man of science, and curiosity drove him to sail toward Pompeii to help the people trapped there. His nephew, Pliny the Younger, would later describe what he saw, the only eyewitness account that survived. He wrote of a sky that turned black, of the sea boiling, and of people wandering with torches, not knowing which way was safe. Pliny the Elder never returned. The fumes and heat claimed his life before he could reach the shore. Back in Pompeii, the night brought a darkness thicker than any night before. Ash rained down without end. The weight crushed roofs, buried courtyards, sealed doors shut. The people who had once dined under the stars were now huddled in silence beneath them. The air was hot enough to burn lungs. The ground shook with each thunderous burst from the mountain. And then came the moment that ended everything. A blast of superheated gas and volcanic debris. A pyroclastic surge raced down the mountain faster than the wind. It was death in motion, a wave of fire and ash so intense that it turned flesh to stone in an instant. Those still in the streets never had time to scream. Those in the houses were frozen where they hid. Mothers shielding children, lovers holding each other, slaves crouched in corners. The city fell silent as the surge passed over, covering Pompeii in layers upon layers of volcanic ash, 20 feet deep. By dawn, the city that once danced with life was gone. No sound, no light, no breath. Only ash, soft, endless, and still warm to the touch. The people of nearby towns believed everyone had perished, and soon, Pompeii was forgotten. For centuries, the world didn't even remember where it had stood. The gods had erased it overnight. Yet beneath that gray tomb, the city waited. Perfectly preserved, frozen in time, its stories sealed in silence. For nearly 17 centuries, Pompeii lay buried beneath the earth, silent, invisible, forgotten. Grass grew over its ruins. Farmers plowed the fields above it, never knowing that just beneath their feet lay an entire world perfectly preserved in its final breath. The mountain that had destroyed it now stood calm again, its fury cooled, its secret hidden under layers of time. For generations, no one spoke the name Pompeii. The Romans who had once ruled the world had vanished themselves, and empires rose and fell over the ashes of a city that time refused to remember. It wasn't until the year 1599 that someone accidentally stumbled upon its ghost. While digging a canal, workers uncovered strange walls covered with paintings, scenes of gods, of lovers, of feasts. But the church at that time found the images too indecent to preserve. They ordered the tunnels sealed again, and Pompeii slipped back into darkness. Nearly 150 years later, in 1748, history decided to reveal itself once more. A group of explorers, digging near the town of Resina, discovered walls, statues, and human bones still wrapped in the dust of that ancient night. Word spread fast. The buried city began to breathe again, slowly, painfully, through the careful hands of archaeologists who didn't yet understand what they had found. What they uncovered stunned the world. Entire streets, shops, and villas appeared just as they had been in 79 AD. Wine jars still stood on counters. Bread loaves, turned to stone, were found in ovens. Bronze lamps remained lit with traces of oil. Even graffiti survived, scratched onto walls, words of humor, gossip, and desire written by hands that never expected to be remembered. It was as if time itself had frozen mid-motion. But the most haunting discovery wasn't the buildings, it was the people. Archaeologists found hollow spaces in the hardened ash where bodies had once been. When they poured plaster into these voids, they saw the shapes of men, women, and children emerge. The people of Pompeii had returned, not as skeletons, but as living images of their final moments. Some were caught mid-run, others curled in corners. A mother was found holding her child. A dog, chained to a post, twisted in agony. These figures were so human, so real, that even centuries later they could break your heart. Through these plaster casts, we saw the faces of the past, the fear in their eyes, the folds of their clothes, the gestures of protection and surrender. It was no longer just history. It was humanity, frozen in the instant of its end. The tragedy of Pompeii wasn't just a story of destruction. It was a mirror showing how fragile civilization truly is. As excavations continued, archaeologists uncovered a city that felt eerily modern. Pompeii had paved roads, complex drainage systems, restaurants, taverns, public baths, gardens, and theaters. There were bakeries with stone ovens, bars with menus carved in marble, and villas with private art collections. Wealthy citizens decorated their homes with intricate mosaics showing scenes of Greek myths and Roman glory. Even the brothels had frescoes describing their services with artistic precision. It was a city of beauty and indulgence, of order and chaos, a portrait of Rome's golden age frozen in volcanic glass. But the deeper they dug, the clearer the story became. Beneath the glamour, there was also warning, a sense of arrogance that no power, no city, no empire is beyond nature's reach. The Romans had built their world believing the gods favored them above all others. Yet in one night, nature reminded them that empires crumble, marble melts, and even the mightiest cities can vanish like dust in a wind. Pompeii became a time capsule, a message from the ancient world to the modern one. Every wall, every object, every skeleton told a story about life 2,000 years ago. What they ate, how they loved, what they believed, what they feared, all preserved by fire. In one corner, archaeologists found a chest of coins clutched in a hand, proof of someone who tried to flee with his fortune. In another, they found a table set for dinner, untouched since the moment the ash fell. These discoveries made the city feel alive again, intimate, heartbreaking, and strangely familiar. The rediscovery of Pompeii changed archaeology forever. For the first time, the past wasn't just written in scrolls or carved on stone tablets. It was lying before us, intact, breathing through ruins. Artists, historians, and writers from all over Europe flocked to see it. They walked through the ancient streets and felt like ghosts themselves, stepping between time and memory. The ruins inspired generations, from neoclassical art to architecture, from poetry to cinema. Even the word Pompeii became a symbol of fragile beauty and forgotten glory. But perhaps the most powerful thing Pompeii gave us was perspective. It reminded humanity that progress, no matter how grand, can vanish overnight. That nature doesn't bow to kings or senators. That in the end, what survives are the traces of how we lived, not how we ruled. Today, Pompeii stands open to the sun once more. Millions of visitors walk its ancient roads, peering into the lives of people who lived, laughed, and died in a single day. You can still see the marks of wagon wheels carved into stone streets. You can still read graffiti that says things like, "Marcus loves Julia," and "Gaius was here." You can stand in the shadow of Vesuvius and imagine the moment when the mountain turned from calm to chaos. 2,000 years later, Pompeii still speaks. Its silence is not empty. It's full of memory. It whispers through the plaster figures, through the walls that survive fire and time. It tells us that history is not distant. It's buried within us, waiting to be uncovered. The city that disappeared overnight became the city that refused to be forgotten. And every piece of ash, every broken statue, every human shape frozen in that volcanic tomb still asks the same question, one that echoes across centuries. What will remain of us when the earth decides to remember again?